Thank you so much. All right. So, guys, thank you for tuning in for this wonderful evening talking about nonviolent communication. What a ways to celebrate being 20, right, Lera? What a way. What a way. Okay. So, guys, if you want to comment, because we're not so many, so I think that's fine if you at times feel that you want to ask a question or dispute or I don't know, make some cool joke. You are invited. Be my guest, but be mindful, okay? Because yeah, it's just nice. Okay, slideshow. Okay. So nonviolent communication. We are doing this in English because this is the official language of Queen, and I am a fan of Queen. And our collective, of course, this is the official language. So nonviolent communication. I'll begin by saying what are the objectives. Objectives for this meeting are quite simple. So we will learn what is nonviolent communication and what is the importance, what is the value, benefits that this system of communication provides, and can it actually do something for us? And then we will learn basic concepts of nonviolent communication, and then I will introduce and we will practice when I say technique, which is at the core of this technique. Maybe before I begin, I will say that this communication type of communication has been helping me to communicate for the past 3 years. It's quite simple, straightforward, and surprisingly has nothing to do with yoga and meditation, which is a rarity in regards to my personality. So this may tell you something, but yeah, in ways it's still connected, but don't rush to it. Don't rush to it. Okay, who is an author? Who is the guy who created this technique? Marshall Rosenberg, PhD, is a clinical yeah, he got his clinical psychology status, I guess, from University of Wisconsin Madison, and he was an American psychologist, mediator, author, and teacher, and he passed away in 2015. Yeah, yeah. So he started creating his method of communication, of this nonviolent communication, back in the 1960s. He's heavily influenced by Carl Rogers and personal-centered therapy. Anya, does it tell you anything?
Yep. I actually adore Carl Rogers, and I actually find him one of my, I don't know, one of my, how do you say kumir in English?
You're not
Well,
idle.
idol. It's a strong word, but okay. I actually admire him a lot, and
Congratulations.
I would say he's the founder of humanistic psychology, and in this type of psychology, uh, person's self-actualization is valued a lot. It's like the top priority in this kind of therapy. And the person-centered therapy is based on three principles, which I really like. The first one is providing unconditional positive regard to a person. The second one is empathy, and the third one is genuineness. So, yeah, I actually find it quite interesting. I didn't know that there was a link between nonviolent communication and Carl Rogers and person-centered therapy, but now as I see it, it kind of makes sense because, yeah, they're very interrelated.
So thank you for commenting. Actually, I didn't know about Carl Rogers. What you said, I want to acknowledge that genuine and being genuine is at the core of this kind of communication. And another thing is, you said the second one is unconditional positive regard for the person. And you also named another one, unconditional positive
Empathy.
empathy is big. Empathy is big here as well. Yeah, thank you for sharing. That's great. So this is a little bit about him. Not only was he a psychologist, but as it mentions here, a mediator. So if you read his book, which is amazing and you should read it, and I advise you to read it in English because you can, He gives many examples of how he had to regulate conflicts in war zones. Uh, don't quote me on this, but I remember he gives an example of regulating a conflict between some terrorist group, perhaps in Israel, but I'm not sure. And he provides a dialogue of that communication, and you can see um, how this nonviolent communication actually works in practice in those extreme situations. So generally, this method is for personal development, but also it's very, wow, no roots. Well, the roots are from his experiences, being a mediator, psychologist, and being influenced by Carl Rogers's person-centered therapy. So yeah, I will show you a video how he does it, because there are quite a few videos how he actually explains his own method, nonviolent communication. But what's interesting is that this is him, by the way. Has a very serious face, but he's such a kind-hearted person. You'll find out in the videos. So he quotes, in order to show two differences between the violent communication and non-violent communication, he actually represents them by two characters. So on the left, on his left hand, you can see a giraffe, and on the right is a jackal. So jackal is a symbol of aggression and dominance, and giraffe is a symbol of compassion and strategy, nonviolent communication. So nonviolent communication, he's supposed to show or symbolize clear-sighted speaker, being aware of his fellow speaker's reactions, and because giraffe has a large heart, representing the compassionate side of nonviolent communication, which is amazing. In his courses, he tended to use these animals in order to make the differences in communicating clear to the audience. I'll show you the videos. It's quite amazing how he does it, and very theatrical. So nonviolent communication basically holds that most conflicts between individuals or groups arise from miscommunication about their needs, human needs, and when they resort to use of coercive and manipulative language that aims to induce fear, guilt, and shame. So these are big words, and we will explore them a little bit further. Now, basically, violent modes of communication, when used during conflicts, they divert the attention of participants away from clarifying their needs, feelings, perceptions, and requests, and thus they perpetuate or hamper the conflict. So it's quite amazing. I will repeat how he does it when he worked as a mediator, how he helped people to understand each other. So in a sense, to connect, to understand each other's needs, emotions, and feelings, and actually brings them together. While it's interesting how coercive or manipulative language actually literally, physically and psychologically distant people from each other. It's quite remarkable. So now the question is, why bother? Why use nonviolent communication? What are the benefits and values? So generally, it improves self-understanding big time. Being more mindful of our own needs, feelings, um, thoughts, and behavior based on our emotions. So it's a big one. Secondly, it increases responsibility for one's own emotions and behavior. Now, I want to really highlight, I think it's amazing. So rather than thinking that some external agents, other people, other things from the outside actually um, control to the larger extent our emotions and behavior, this approach wants us to think otherwise, to start taking full responsibility for our own emotions and behaviors. Recognizing, of course, that we may have other things influencing us, but overall, our state of being, our emotions, is our own making. We are totally responsible for it, because that's what gives us agency, control over our life and behavior and emotions, and just makes everything so much more clear. And lastly, it promotes self-expression. Active listening fosters conflict resolution skills. Uh, So these are amazing, I think. And now let's look at four major components. What constitutes nonviolent communication? The first important aspect of this type of communication is observation. Now, because we are largely a theatrical collective, an artistic collective, this one is a key in what we do as artists, as actors, as dancers, as performers, as musicians, living beings. Observation is key, and this skill uh, entails acknowledging facts, consequences. This is the wrong word. This is a typo, guys. Consequences, events, behaviors, and experiences without judging, criticizing, and labeling. I think I missed an L there. Lera will. Lera, don't hit me with the stick for this. I was rushing. Um, Observation is big. It's key. Second portion of nonviolent communication is emotions. So, a skill to acknowledge our emotions, feelings, and understanding that they are separate from opinion and evaluation are big. So the third one is needs, recognizing our own needs without criticizing, blaming, and attacking. And the fourth one is request, formulating a request in a simple language without manipulating our partner, stating in a clear, unambiguous, and a polite form. This is what request is in this context. So these are actually all we need to know. I see that Simba is about to doze off. So I need to do something to more exciting. So actually, nonviolent communication is a practical thing. That's why I use this type of skill, teach it in yoga and different communities. I think it's useful because it's very practical. So observation, emotions, needs, requests. Now we will see how it works. This is the formula. It's called when I or I say formula. What's important that in this type of formula, we are given information about those four things. We give information about fact, emotion, thirdly need, and four a request. So let me give you an example. So usually we use this kind of communication in a conflicting situation. So let me give you an example. I just got a message today from a friend. I connected with a friend who I have not talked to for a while, and it was quite emotional when he replied to me. I was it's a true story. I'm not like making it up on the spot. So before the rehearsal, I felt this anxiety. It's anxiety, uneasiness, because I realized that at this point we are not like really friends anymore, but we used to be very, very, very close. And emotionally, I was like it's just like I feel influenced by it. So this influenced my rehearsal in the beginning of this rehearsal. So I'm like forgetting my lines. I can't concentrate. So I had to like acknowledge to the director what could I have done in this situation. This is how we use this formula. So the fact is it's simple. I'm forgetting my lines. I'm forgetting my lines, and I'm forgetting my lines as I am feeling emotionally influenced by this conversation with my old friend earlier this morning. So I'm feeling anxious, a little bit sad, and frustrated because it's important for me to be friend with that person. I just feel it's important for me to be a friend with this person. So as a result, I'm feeling this, I'm forgetting this. It influences my rehearsal process and I'm forgetting these lines. So the request that I made was, can I please take 30 minutes to just be alone and run my lines on my own? Does that work for you? How does that feel for you? So the director was fine. She said, yes, sure. So because what is good about this kind of dealing with the situation, processing the situation, is that I give person full information. I provide my director and provide my fellow actors, stage managers with this full information. So they know what's going on. They're just not looking at me, um, like not understanding what's going on. Like Nikolai is forgetting his lines. Like why? What's going on with this guy? I just give them information. I just state it, and they're clear about what's going on, and I understand myself what's going on. So the situation, the information is there. Uh, One formula that we use actually in this rehearsal process within this collective right now that I'm a part of is that directness is frankness. No, sorry, not this. Directness is kindness. So being direct is being kind. Being transparent, I would say, is kind. When you just give this information, it helps you to process this conflict easily. So again, to summarize, first we want to start with making sure we let the speaker know what we're talking about, giving them the fact, the situation or event, connecting it, giving them what my emotion is. My emotion is the speaker who says it. Connecting it with our need. What is this emotion is connected? What is this emotion? To what need is this emotion connected? And then making a positive request. So this is how we use this formula. Uh, do you have any questions? What questions do you have about this, guys? Because I want us to practice this one maybe. First, do you have any questions about how this formula works? Anya
No.
understands. Okay, Diana, you said no. Did you say no?
Yeah, I don't have questions.
I don't have questions. Lera, do you have a what? Are you still there or are you celebrating? Most likely celebrating. Anyways, can we make a hot job? Okay, no. Um, yeah, this is how it works. Anyways, these are just some keys, advice that I found in the book that actually, and for the course that I passed on this nonviolent communication, as it was a part of the yoga teacher training. Uh, these are some advice on how to transform our violent reactions to sentient or non-violent ones. The first one is to actively listen for needs and emotions of our fellow partners. Partners means like who we speak to. What is the word interlocutor? I don't know, but you understand. The second one is acknowledge your emotions and needs, recognize them. Yeah. The third one is request and not demand. Demand is when we don't, what is this? Don't give our speaker a chance to decline, to say no. So this is the difference between request and demand. So how do we know the difference? When I make a request, I'm ready for the person to say no. When I demand, I say do this, and when they say no, I either want to punish them, yeah, like take some measures. This is a demand. So usually demand is more falls into the category of violent um, communication, but only, but sometimes, but with some exceptions. In theater, sometimes we say like, you do this, you do that. Ideally, we don't want to use directive language like that, but under certain circumstances, it works. But generally, it's a violent communication. Observe more, don't judge, evaluate. Well, evaluate, I'm not sure. I guess the key here is not to judge, or be aware that a fact is different from an opinion. This is very important to be able to trace that. And I like the next one. Be careful with giving advice. Don't give advice unless requested by a person. This is a general note. This is key in coaching, and maybe Anya will agree. I'm not sure. In psychology, I think definitely, generally, could be a relevant note.
I just wanted to add on that it's very context dependent, because there are different kinds of advice and different kinds of support. And that is why the process of learning when to give advice and when to not give advice it's a very long and difficult one, because sometimes the person will not ask you directly for an advice, but you can see that they are suffering and you have to step in. Or sometimes you see that the person does not want you to give them advice, and they basically just want to vent about their lives, and that's it. And that's very cool, I would say, and very difficult to acquire skill, like learning this difference between when to step up and like offer your help, or when to just like, keep, I don't want to say keep quiet, but like keep more silent and just be there as an active listener, as you mentioned. So yeah, I like that. I always say that don't give an advice that to people when they didn't ask for it and they did like really clearly show any signs of asking you for advice, but also be mindful that sometimes you might have to like step up your game and be there for a person even when they're not asking for it directly. But again, it's a very difficult skill. Like, I applaud people who actually know the difference and know this very thin border between when to give an advice and when to keep silent. So yeah.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I want to acknowledge that it is difficult to learn how to do that. I guess the key could be to be mindful of the whole situation. Like during the coaching, for sure, the coaching approach is that generally you don't give advice, but you can say, if you think that you have an advice, you can ask your client or the person who you're talking to, how do you feel about if I give you an advice? Would you feel benefited if I do that? And so you give it to the person and they can say no, and that's fine, sure. They don't want to do that, don't have to do it. But if they say yes, then you can say, okay, now I'm gonna give you an advice. So that's not a, but then in there, you're not being a coach, you're being like more, how do you say, a person who knows, or you just being you kind of thing. You're just talking from personal experience, but the person knows about it. So it's important to be aware, because when we just give advice without, given advice has its drawbacks, in the sense that the other person may not be ready. You are not in a certain relationships that conducive for this. If you're a director, if director actor, it depends. I think what's important in the beginning of the process in any sort of communication is to establish what will your relationships be, what are the boundaries, and how we're going to communicate. Like, can I give you advice as a director? Do you expect me? What do you expect? What do you think is my role as a director to you? So like talking through the relationships and expectations is very important. Yeah, I think that's it for now. Next one is learn more about what emotions are there. So that falls under the category of learning what emotions are there. How do they function? How do they feel in my body? What do they make me do? So this is self-analysis kind of. For an actor, it's very important. This is our, muscles. So yeah, also be mindful and develop non-verbal language, intonation, facial expressions, body language, gestures, and be aware of other people's gestures, all of this. Yeah. These are some components of quote unquote violent communication. Of course, generally, we have to be mindful of these, not to think that these are bad, but just be very mindful how they work. So judging and evaluating. So criticizing, condemning, giving labels and generalization fall under this category. So when we use those kinds of things in communication, they generally result in misunderstanding, conflicts, unintended debate, self-defense, and aggression. So I like this one. When you just call somebody, an idiot or a pig, well, this is a label. Or for example, you're lazy. You're lazy. So this is a generalization, and of course, if you hear somebody says that to you, yeah, you want to defend, you want to fight or flight. So this is a generalization, of course, and it does not help. Does not help. Another big one, and I think another workshop, I read a book, and a great one on this manipulation, a great book on this one. This is huge. Under this category, what falls under this category? Demand, forcing, threatening, promising a price. Promising a price, think mostly like promising a plushka. How do you say? Promising something for this. Okay, you do, for example, okay, you, if you,
Perks,
what's that?
perks, the word you were looking for. There are some
Perks. Yeah, perks. You're right, Anya. Yeah, it's like you blackmail pretty much. If you like, if you sleep with me, I'll give you this part. So that would be an example of manipulation.
Should we, sorry to interrupt, should we differentiate between promising a prize as a manipulation and promising a prize as an initiative? Because, for example, even in science, we use like compensation thing as initiative. So we're not manipulating people into doing something, but like if you participate in this study, you will get like a credit for your course. So we're not like demanding them to do that, but we're using it as an incentive, so to speak.
No, you're right. Absolutely. My phrasing is poor. My phrasing here is poor. Promising a prize is not a good phrasing. Promising a perk, as you said. Promising a perk for risky, unethical behavior, you could say. Manipulation is very subtle. Manipulation is very subtle because the person who is manipulated, usually without proper training and self-awareness, they don't feel that they're manipulated. Manipulators are usually very agile, cunning people. They know how to do this thing. Depraving another person of making a choice, non-explaining needs and feelings. This is big. This is a problem. When we don't explain and recognize our own needs and feelings and state them, we are kind of in this territory. We don't know what's going on. The person is clearly tense. We can see the person there is like something is boiling, but they don't give an explanation. You ask them, how do you feel? What do you feel? What do you think? What do you want to say? They're just saying nothing. Sometimes in certain circumstances, that can be, I wouldn't call it a manipulation, but it's just this lack of information they provide creates many obstacles. It means that they are just distant. They distance you. They distant yourself, especially when they say everything is fine, for example, like everything is fine, but you can see it's not like the trust is not there. You're not connecting. So if you are in working relationships, like if you are actor, director, it's very hard to work unless this connection is there. You know what I mean? Unless this trust that allows you to give information, it's important. It's very important. This third one is very interesting too. Projecting emotions. So this is a psychological term. Putting responsibility. I didn't like the way I said Putin. Putin. Putting responsibility. Yeah, I got canceled again. Putting responsibility for our own emotions onto another person. This results in unconscious manipulation, isolation, and passivity. So, for example, the way it sounds, you make me mad. No, man, or no, lady. No, this is manipulation. You make me mad. It's not like it's a manipulation because you put your own anger onto another person. Sure, they may trigger you, but this is your trigger. This is your responsibility. This is your reaction. This is your experience. So when we say you make me mad, the way to deal with it non-violently, I see your hand, Anna, just 1 second. When we see it non-violently, we can say, I feel anger when I hear that you say this because my need is not met. So you see how it's different. This kind of phrasing is different from if I said, when you say this, I feel that. So it's a little subtle thing here, but in my first example, when we take more responsibility for our own emotions that we're feeling in this moment, we have in this situation more control over the situation. Whereas if we say, I'm mad because, how do you say? I'm mad because, well, people don't come to my nonviolent communication workshop. I'm mad. Like they don't do it, and it's their fault. They're like, people are irresponsible. They don't care. So kind of I'm putting in this situation responsibility on those people, on the external situations. But yeah, the problem with this is that I don't take responsibility for my experience here, and I feel powerless, and I project my own emotions onto others. Yes, Anya, go ahead.
Feel a bit conflicted because I don't really see the difference. Like when somebody says something mean to you and you become angry, and you say that you shouldn't say like what you just said make me angry, because well, it's kind of putting responsibility on somebody else's words. But at the same time, when you say the non-violent way of communicating, it would be, I feel angry because I I feel like, yeah, I feel angry, like I realize that it's my responsibility for my emotion, but I feel angry and triggered by some things you say because these things make me feel triggered and stuff. I don't really see the difference. So you still acknowledge that you didn't become angry just because you out of nowhere. You still became angry because somebody said something that triggered you. And I feel like I don't really understand the difference when, like, you still have to let the person know that they did make you angry, and it's also their responsibility if they made you feel angry. But also, like, and I understand that it's your emotion. I'm just like, I'm circling back to this specific case when we were sitting at Lera's house, and I said something that triggered you, and you became angry, and you became like hostile, and I said like, well, there is no need to, like, to become extremely angry, and you said, well, it's my emotion, this is how I feel. So is this, I'm not sure, so you're still acknowledging your emotions, and so I'm just confused. Okay, I don't know.
Okay.
How do you deal with that?
Can I say something? You said amazingly when you said you feel angry, and that's great. You acknowledge your feeling, but if we want to go forward, we need to acknowledge the need that is connected to that feeling. I'm feeling anger because my need is not being met. I need to understand, in this case, what is the need that is not being made in that situation when I was angry in Lera's house, for example. I'm not angry just because I'm angry. I'm angry because some need is not met. Something that is important to me is not realized. That is what is important.
But what if somebody says just something offensive to you? Like, how do you recognize the need? I feel the need to be respected, and you just disrespected me. Something
Yeah,
like,
that's good. If that is what makes you angry, you have to be sincere with yourself. What is about the situation that makes you angry? What is it? Is it the person or is it something else?
but what if it is the person? Like, genuinely, there are some situations when people are just being, I'm sorry, dicks, and you can't just take responsibility for them being dicks. I mean,
So being when we call somebody, this is the thing. When this is a we're in a danger zone because we will not connect according to the system. If we call somebody a dick,
hey, sorry, yeah, I didn't mean. Okay, I don't want to label, but some
I'm
people are just being not sincere, and some people are just being inconsiderate, and they say whatever they want to you, and that's genuinely, I think, it's a good reason to become offended and become angry. I just don't know how to deal with that in that situation, because this person who just offended me, they
why
didn't
don't we try,
consider my.
why don't we try this formula with you being offended by some comment? So for example, I say something to you and you feel offended, hypothetically. So try this formula with me.
Okay, so if somebody just wants to call me names,
Okay, I call you what, for example, I call you something you don't want to be called.
okay, when you call me that, I feel angry, and I feel
No,
angry because I feel like you just inconsiderately called me something bad without acknowledging the fact that you might offend me and you don't have any reasons to do that. So it's important for me to know why you called me that. So
That,
so
that
can you not call me that anymore because it hurts?
I think this is great. You got the fact. You said about the situation. You gave information about the fact situation. You stated your emotion and you made the request. But we're still missing the need.
Yeah, because I don't know what the need is. My need is
What is it?
Like to be accepted by society or something? Like, is it starts from like taking things personally? You just like try to not take it personally in a way. So you
mm,
want to have this need to even like explain to the person who kind of offend you. Maybe you will explain, of course, like, but it not taking things whatever they say personally, because on the first place you don't think this way about yourself, so you're like you don't feel offended and you just like say, hey, that's whatever you said made me feel this way. But I mean,
Mhm.
and
Jan,
just like show that you don't respect this way of communication in a way.
I just want thank you, Jana, for your comment. I think we're getting somewhere. It's a little bit difficult here to figure out the need. You got everything. I think that the key here to figure out the need is to ask what need is not being met. This is a good question. What is the need that is connected to this emotion that I'm experiencing right now?
the need to not be called names when it's unjustified.
This is good. This is good. It doesn't have to be super specific, but this is great. This is already great because this is gives person gives person uh, um, an importance of your whatever you're saying because you're talking about your feelings, your needs, and you're making a request. So this is great.
Okay.
Let's try with somebody else, Lera or Jan. Let's try with you. So I think ideal for you to see how this formula works. Who wants to go? Lera, are you there?
I am there.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, no,
just oh, sorry.
yeah, sorry. I was just gonna say like how we start, like same someone offended us and we response.
Let's try. Yeah, the key is to try this situation in some conflict, in some difficult situation, or when we need to express something to another person. Yeah, it can be a conflict. Can be a conflict. Let's try a conflict, different kind of conflict, or any difficult situation that you want to work through. We can to communicate to other person. We can try to do that.
I can like from example from the situation with my mom, like which happens a lot of time, maybe I can explain. Okay,
So please
for
try to
example, my mom,
just try to follow this formula and do this with your
yeah,
example with your mom. Yeah.
my mom judges me a lot for every my choice, like my appearance and everything, like whatever I cut my hair, whatever I shave and everything. So I tell her, when you judge my appearance, I feel like you обесцениваешь, I don't know how to say,
Undervalue?
all my, what's that?
Devalue.
Devalue.
Devalue, how you devalue all my personal skills and put my appearance on the first place to any of my like personal development of achievements. And it is important for me because I need this. I need this support from you in a way, because you're like one of the closest person for me. And can you please accept me the way I am, and in non-judgmental way, just loving, please. This is what I try to tell her all the time. Yeah.
How do you feel about it? What you just said.
Yeah, I feel like it's more detailed in a way to tell person, like, yeah, like when you explain how you feel, and yeah, it's nice. Yeah, I really want to like try to use it more often, of course.
It's
Yeah.
it's the beginning, it may seem very mechanical, but it gives us, how to say, those concrete steps to do. So we're aware what to say in the conflict situation. And normally, sometimes, mostly we can't go right away and present this into the person when we are dealing through something very emotional personally. We usually need to go back, become more, how to say, be more patient, process, and then come back to the person. Shit, I'm gonna, sorry, destroy this house. um it's just a glass table, so I have to be careful. So when you come back and you give this information to a person, they will appreciate it. Otherwise, if you just rush into action and say, and you give something, like a generalization, violent communication, you will not achieve this understanding with the person, because they will get protective. If you get defensive or protective, the other person gets defensive or protective. It's simple acting thing. You hit person defense. So it's very, yeah. So yeah, Lera, do you want to try this one? So we move on.
I was going to go with the one about talking to the parents and having kind of a reasonable, calm, level-headed conflict about comments on appearance and other things. But Diana, summed all of that up in actually a way that I already implement, because even though I think I cannot currently pinpoint things, sorry about the background noise, I have my wonderful roommates in the house. But basically, maybe there are situations where I could use this approach better, where unfortunately I let emotion overtake slightly because I am pretty bad-tempered. But when it comes to, say, my mother's comments on my septum ring, because she doesn't like body modifications and especially face piercings, I usually tell her, give me a moment, I'm going to go outside and continue.
Mhm. While she's away, while Lera is away, I want to say also, it's very important when you give information, facts, it's very important to be very specific. So don't say, and not to generalize. So it's very important to say, when you, for example, like I'll give you example with my mom. When you say that I'm, I don't know, I'll make this up. When you say that I'm sectant, I feel offended because my lifestyle makes me happy and I need to feel happy to function properly. So can you be more specific about what you mean by me being a sectant, or can you just be, yeah, I would do that. So it's very good to be a very, it's important, it's key to be observant and give specific acknowledgements. It can be very simple. For example, I can be at the rehearsal, I notice that your face, you're looking a little bit sad because your eyes are like this, like, I don't know, or somebody's crying, you can say, well, I see that you're sad, or what can we do, what can I do? So just be observant, it's very important. So this first key, it's very important. Lera, are you there?
Yeah, like I'm sorry, like when people just come to you and you look sad or you look tired, you're just like straight up without like explaining. I always, like, from childhood, I felt like it's something wrong about it. Like you don't explain, you just like, you look tired. Like, I don't know.
Well,
It's violent, in my opinion.
Well, it depends. Everything can be violent. Like a simple phrase, it's of course it's about your intention. So if you're saying, if you give observation, I notice that you, like your face is like this. I notice that you're crying. Um, I are you feeling? I think you look sad. What is the ideal way to say? What is the need? What do you want? Like, not in the sense, the better way. What is the need that is not met? Or the simple way, what can I do? Or can I do anything? Or what?
Mhm.
How do you want me to react? How do you want me to react? And maybe
Think
the person
also, sorry, the
go ahead.
safest way without like assuming somebody's emotions, because often we might be wrong about guessing somebody's emotion. The safest way would be like just to come up and say, "Hey, are you okay?" And because um, even if the person does feel bad, they might not want to share that they feel bad with you specifically. And even if they're crying and you say, "Hey, are you okay?" and they say, "Yeah," I don't think it would be good for you to continue like, what do you need? What is your like, what is your
Mhm.
emotion? You look tired. No, maybe they really need to, be on their own at this moment. And if you ask them, "Hey, are you okay?" or "How are you feeling?" and they're hesitant, like, yeah, so you see that they're not quite sure, you might go deeper and say, would you like some help? Then again, you can go. And of course, if you say, if you ask, "Are you okay?" and people directly tell you, "No, I'm not okay," then it's your clue to like go there and be there for them. So again, that's why I like this question a lot. Is the safest way to like check the grounds, like, should I go there, should I not go there? And again, analyze the situation, the emotional situation from there, and then make your decision. But again, don't overstep, even if it's obvious that the person doesn't feel good. There are situations where it kind of seemed to us that it's obvious that people, they don't feel well at this moment, but maybe they just want to be on their own. So yeah, I think that's what I would do.
Mhm. Thank you. Lera, you have do you want to say no?
Yeah, I raised my hand and then I lowered my hand. I'm gonna try to be brief because unfortunately, but fortunately, most of the things that I was going to say were already said. In regards to Anya's statement about somebody crying, I like to start with a cup of water if I see somebody feeling bad. So I just slide myself into a situation without um, invading their space with immediate questions or statements. So I just offer a cup of water and then I say, "Hey, like, I see you're crying. Are you okay?" And then, regardless of what their answer is going to be, like a blunt no or an actually yes, and they start explaining, I also, for my, mental health sake, I ask before I get dumped on, I ask, "Would you like to talk about it? Or do you need advice? Or do you want to just vent? Or do you want me to be near you or anything?" Because it saves both people from either getting overwhelmed by somebody else's story or from sharing when you want to be alone. But at the same time, it's comforting to have somebody next to you that, in that small situation, that context you can rely on. And to my coming back to my previous words about, say, the conflict between my mother and my um, infamous nose ring. She doesn't like that type of stuff. So the first time I told her that I got it, she didn't like it. She told me very openly that she has seen people wearing it and she thinks it's gross and disgusting and doesn't fit anybody. And I immediately decided to take the kind of adult approach of, how first you go from "Mom, can I go somewhere?" to "Would it be okay with you, Mom, if I went there?" So you just have to be reasonable with them. So what I say to her is, "Hey, when you say that, it's just a personal comment about my appearance and I don't like it. I understand that as a parent, that's your common way of expressing. You just comment on something. Or maybe that's just my relationship with her. People just comment things to each other. But your statement makes me feel bad because I wear it because I like it, and you just come to me. And when you say that that ring is gross, or that people who wear it look gross or ugly, you're basically telling me that you think I look gross or ugly. And then I say, yeah, when you say this, when you say that my nose ring is ugly, I feel bad because it's something that I like to put into my appearance because it makes me feel good looking and it makes me feel good. And it is important for me, yeah, basically because I need this for my self-expression. I think like that could be a good need. Um, and that's pretty much all that matters because it's hard to talk with parents or somebody who comments on your appearance when they will never feel satisfied with your answer about your want or need, and you just have to stick with why it matters to you because it's very easy to get discouraged and just start feeling small and guilty and like a child because no answer is going to be good for them because they're going to stick to their opinion. But I feel like in this type of conflict you just need to understand that even if the person's opinion is not going to change, it matters more how you handle it and how you feel at the end of this conflict. Because either you're going to exit it feeling all emotional, like you had an argument, or you're going to feel, hey, I expressed what I felt in a respectful way. And, they can fume and, keep it opinions all they want, but I stuck to what matters to me. And that's all that matters. And I just tell her basically that it matters to me. I need it for my self-expression. That is why um, instead, can you just realize that I can take it out? I can flip it up. It's not influencing anything important in my life. It's not a threat to health. It's not a threat to my employment, which is her main concern. So I feel like I handle that subject very well whenever it comes up. And what I also like to say that I think works well when people spit out hurtful stuff in the moment that you shouldn't take at, I'd say, face value, but we're like close to heart, sorry, because it is said in the moment. And when people are agitated, they're more likely to just try to aim at what is going to hurt you. So I say, for example, if it's on the phone call and she asks, oh, why haven't you taken your nose ring out? It's ugly, blah, blah, blah. I say, when you hang up this phone call, are you going to feel good about telling your child that what they do for their own enjoyment, but that doesn't hurt anybody or is not immoral, let's say, because we share the same set of moral values with her? Are you going to feel good about that when you hang up? So in a conflict, you could transform that into, after we have all calmed down and we've gotten to a shared conclusion or agreement or compromise, are you going to feel good about all the things that you said in the moment, all the hurtful things that you probably didn't mean, but you still said because in the moment you wanted to hurt me? Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
It was great. I want to acknowledge that.
Love it. Thank you.
I want to acknowledge that you were very specific. Like you said specifically, it has to do with the piercing in your nose. That's great. So that gives them information. You said about the need that you need self-expression. That's amazing. That's a great need. That's very clear and that's powerful. That communicates a lot. And you made a positive request. Okay, can you please not? I forget exactly the way you said it, but you said it. I apologize for this. But for emotion, you said that you feel bad. My question is, how can you make it more specific next time? Because yeah, I know.
Not
Well,
answering. Sorry, not answering this question. I had something else to ask about or clarify. So I liked everything that Lera has said, but I have like mixed feelings about the last part she added about, would you make you feel good knowing that you said these things to your child and all that stuff? To me, it sounded a bit manipulative because for me, it elicited a feeling of shame. So maybe it's just me. That's why I'm not like arguing that this is what it was, but I'm just sharing my feelings. If somebody said, would it feel good for you knowing that you just like, said this and this to me, and then I would feel ashamed, and maybe I should feel ashamed. But again, looking at the slides that you mentioned, for me, it felt like it fell into a category of manipulation and assigning emotions to people that they should feel based on your opinion. So yeah, I'm not sure if I completely agree with that last statement.
I hear what you're saying, and I understand why somebody could think that. But there's 2 points that I would like to make in regards to that. Firstly, I described a very specific personal situation of how I handle that conflict with my mother, and that's what I use, and that's what works. So again, everything is a case to case basis. So obviously, you can't use the same kind of um, schablon. Well, you know what I'm saying, for every single situation. I mean, maybe there's a couple more that you can use the same wording for, but again, and also it's not like, are you going to feel good as a person, but like, is it gonna bring you joy? Are you gonna feel fulfilled? It's more of a, are you going to feel good about having said that to me? I'm not sure if I'm expressing it like very well or what I'm trying to say, but um not is in, are you gonna be happy? But when you think about your actions, do you think you're gonna still think that it was reasonable or like good for you to have said that? And because people in the moment, especially when they're angry in a conflict, not necessarily violent, but like maybe verbally to a certain extent violent, if they say hurtful things. Oh, I'm standing outside, I see a hair. Sorry, I got oh, it's coming into my porch. Sorry, I got distracted. There's another note taker in our nonviolent communication class. What I'm saying is, um, it's I find it that that's a good way to kind of stop a person, not necessarily in their tracks, but kind of like that to sooner channel them into a different branch of the conversation. So when they keep going on about something, they they cling to a thing that they know is going to hurt you, and they keep that line of narration. They keep, just finding new words and finding new ways to center around that point because they understand that that is what works for you and that is what they currently feel in the moment. So she's going to keep going on around how, oh, I see that people wear it and they're ugly, and this nose ring is ugly, and you wear it and it's ugly, and it's going to be bad for this and that. So they keep circling around that one point that they understand is like they found it, and they're going to keep trying to hit you like right in the target with that thing. So it's very easy to kind of tap into their not like primal necessary, but one of the core things like, hey, when we're done, are you going to feel happy about what you said to me? Because right now, maybe they can't feel happy, but it's still a positive sort of emotion because they're talking about what they feel. They're not being hurt in the moment in the conversation. Maybe they were upset about the subject in the past. So she was upset by my nose ring. But in the moment, she's pushing, sorry for the use of Russian expressions, гнет свою линию. So she's doing something that she agrees with, and it's a good way of just kind of reminding them like, hey, the world is not going to end after this argument, but it's going to keep moving and our relationship is still going to be there, but are you going to feel good about this course of action? Thank you.
Thank you for voicing it, and Anya, thank you for saying. I think this it's a gray area, right? There is no like mathematical. This is right. This is wrong. But as far as I remember your wording, would you feel good about it? There is this kind of, we should be very careful about these questions. Firstly, closed questions that are imply yes or no. There's not much control that you give to the other person. Like, it's okay. I'm not saying like, how to say, there's not an orthodox way to do it, but we should be very careful because projecting feeling of guilt on others it falls under the category of manipulation. And even if the phrasing is itself, but your intention is violent. What's important about all of this, if your intention, whatever you say like behind what you say, it won't work. So this format, it doesn't work even if you do it ideally, if the intention inside of you is guilt, or if you want to put guilt, if you want to make other person feel bad, if you want other person to do something, like if you want to, how do you say, hurt them in the sense of appealing to, like making them do what you want, this is considered violent, and this is manipulation when you want to force certain reaction. So we have to be very careful. So the other way would be like, I mean, just consider this: if you add an open-ended question, how would you feel if I do this to you? This is a more open question, inviting reflection on the other person. How would you feel? So this is a very good discussion we're having here. So my thing, like, we have to be very careful about our intention. So this nonviolent communication works only if we are willing, good for the other person, if we are benevolent. If we are thinking that we are still in a violent or agitated state of mind, don't talk to the person, because you won't project, you won't express at your best, you won't do it non-violently. It's very difficult, especially at the beginning. It's very important to be well-meaning when we do that, or just be very extra careful. So common mistakes for nonviolent communication is making others responsible. Example is, you are at fault. So solution is to take charge of our own emotions. So making others responsible for your own feelings. Another one is generalization instead of facts and observations. For example, you are lazy. It's like, I mean, it's a subjective statement. It's an opinion. It's a generalization. But if you want to, for example, say, you don't throw out garbage for the third day, even though I told you 3 days ago, this is a fact. It's not like good or bad. Like, this is the third day that you have not taken garbage, and I asked you if you could do it like 3 days ago. So being more specific is more, how to say, it helps us to overcome this problem here with generalizations and with generalizations. So generalization, like, you make me mad. So solution is only use facts. So you don't, like, how can we say that you make me mad? For example, I feel irritated when you use this phrasing. Can you give me an example about this one? Can you give me an example of generalization?
I can give something from our psychology course.
Yeah.
About generalization is that you never listen to me. So
Да, я тоже так хотела. Когда
it's
ты говоришь, ты постоянно.
it's factually impossible. So yeah, I think it's overgeneralization.
Yeah. So the way to do it, for example, like, for example, you never listen to me. That's a good one. For example, you can say, I feel that you are not in this when the conversation is happening. I sense that you are not paying attention to the arguments that I'm making right now. I sense that you are distracted. Am I right? Correct me if I'm wrong. There's not one way to say it, but keeping it specific is very important. And just facts, just bare facts, bare bone facts, very important. Another one is mixing evaluation with emotions. Yeah, like evaluating, exactly, like, you're lazy. Like, it's an evaluation. What's the alternative way to say, okay, for the fifth, for the fifth day now, you came late to work by 15 minutes. I don't know if that sells it or not, but like, being specific, this is my case. Being specific and factual, strictly. If you are factual, no, nobody can say anything. Like, you won't get a violent reaction necessarily. Demand and manipulation. Yeah, when you demand and you don't have the right to do that, well, of course, you get a violent reaction. When you manipulate, of course, you get this reaction right away. Nobody likes to be manipulated, especially when you understand that you're being manipulated. For example, can you give me an example of manipulation while I'm trying to figure out when I was manipulated?
Giving
just-
ultimatums is one kind of manipulation.
Which one?
Giving ultimatums is one kind of manipulation. So
Okay.
it's often used in relationships. You don't, I don't know, you either do this or we break up. You either stop hanging out with your friends or we break up. So it's, I would say it's a subtype of manipulation. So you get what you want through manipulating others people's choices.
Right, like you kind of force them. Like manipulation has to do with you forcing them to you to your own gain, but not to that person's gain. Like you either do that, like it's not about compromise, it's about your own gain. That's the thing. Compromise would be, you know, thinking about other person's needs as well, keeping them in view, like their needs, their feelings, and your own as well. So like, okay, let's try to find something that works for both of us here. Like let's discuss situations. That could be the thing. So basically, this is everything that I wanted to say. The ending slides are just separate, like the differences between fact and evaluation or judgment. Fact is just clear observation, pure facts, nothing else. Evaluation or judgment is interpretation, subjective view. I love this definition. Evaluation is evaluation. It's basically your own subjective clear Nirmal logic, interpretation and subjective view. Yeah, it's like your own evaluation. It's your own judgment. It's your own thinking. Yeah. Demand versus request. I also I already told previously. Request you can decline. The other person can decline. Do you want to go for a walk? If the person say no, that's fine. If you say, do you want to go for a walk, and they decline, and you go, no, you have to go for a walk. You just you have to. This is manipulation. Or a demand. Demand, you can decline it.
What if I say, let's go for a walk?
Let's go for a walk. It's a suggestion. Like, I mean, it depends on the intention.
You actually can say no to let's go to a walk, so it's good. So
Yeah, you can say no, but it all depends on the how do you say, your phrasing. Your intention is the most important thing. Yeah, so the references here is, of course, Nonviolent Communication, Language Compassion. This is the book by Rosenberg. I recommend to read it. It's great. The second one I have not read, but I have heard a lot about it. It's called The 5 Love Languages, How to Express Heartfelt Commitment to Your Mate. I've never read the full one. I only read this title. The 5 Love Languages is good, but How to Express Heartfelt Commitment to Your Mate, I don't know. It sounds corny. Maybe it's good. I've heard lots of good things about it. Anyways, this is everything that I wanted to share with you guys. I think this is it. I will stop recording here. Yeah.